everyone, and welcome to the Craig and Jane show again.
And hello everybody, are you all sitting tickety-boo? And then we'll start, won't we, Craig?
Yes, it's not a children's programme.
You can still be tickety-boo.
So it's been a bit of a hectic lead up to today, to be honest, because we've had a few technical things to sort out, but we've got it, we're there, and it's good to see you all, guys. So today we're kind of keeping a fairly open theme. We've got another little video to show you part way through, you know, one of our little Spirit of videos, which I think you'll find fun as well. But we're going to be very dependent on you today to come up with some interesting questions, please. So those that are regulars, have a think and do some questions. Put your questions up, nice and clear if you can, because we got, you know, it's very hard in the control room sometimes to catch if everybody's chatting on there. So you're welcome to say your hellos. So let's have a few hellos first of all and say hello to a few people. So, and what I'm doing is still put your questions up, guys. Right. Anything on the paranormal, spirituality, you know what I mean, all of it.
Cheryl, Craig and Jane show, blessings for everyone. Thank you, Cheryl.
We've got a minuscule little screen in front of us today. So
hello, Jane and Craig from Germany. Lydia. Hello, hi Lydia. Frank. Hi Jane and Craig from sunny Poole. Great to see you both again. Thank you. Gosh, it's hot, isn't it?
I'm sweating here, I tell you.
Nana. Hi from Totten, Craig and Jane, and everyone too. Kiss, 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 kiss.
You're doing well reading this. I can't read them at all.
Agility
it's so
bits.
tiny.
Hello from Cornwall. I hope everyone's well and having a good day. We certainly have. It's been so hot.
Yeah, we've been baking here. I expect you are there too.
And we had a power cut here as well.
Yeah, we had a power cut and yeah, quite a few things. And of course, the worst thing of all is our little mouse for working the screen run out of power and we can't find a lead. So that's why we have to see that we're going like this. What does it say, Jane?
Yeah, Nicola Cardo says, great to see you today. Thank you.
I can see it on my side screen here.
Yeah, you look at your side, I look ahead.
Well, no, I can't. I can't see it on the side screen. Never
One
mind.
more, Willow.
So that's the hellos. Right. Thank you, guys.
No, one more. Greetings from Montessori, USA. Absolutely love. Oh, thank you so much. Right.
Well, thanks, guys, for coming on board and being on the show again with us all, because this is kind of a those that haven't been before, it's a kind of an interactive show, so it gives you a chance to ask us questions about all things paranormal. We tend to keep it more of the spiritual side rather than the prediction side. I'm sure a lot of you are itching to ask about Trump and what's going on with all that, but I'll deal with all those mainly in my
I think it's
Coffee with Craig and James.
I think it's too hot to worry about Mr. Trump today.
Yeah, it probably is. So if you ever think about some of the questions, any thoughts first of all, Jane, about what's been going on in our lives at the moment and thoughts generally just to get things going?
Well, we have quite a busy life because both of us working, doing personal readings and then going out and about, which we do every Sunday, to find interesting places, because we're still looking for ghosts though in the daytime. We don't necessarily have to be
tomorrow we're going to go into a D-Day thing, so we might be able to do a show about that.
I haven't finished, Craig. They don't necessarily have to come out at night time.
Carry on then.
Well, I'm trying to, if you let me, but we've got some interesting footage to show you, and then we're going to go out Sunday. It'd be nice to actually, if we can, get access to some catacombs. Actually, we were talking about that. Perhaps I can find out tomorrow about that. Okay,
so we'll start talking about some of your ideas and questions and things. I see there's one there, Willow, you can click on. That's it, good. Yes, so you're saying, hi Craig and Jane, I've just come through a spiritual sort of awakening, but I've lost a good bit of weight. Is this normal?
Well, I need plenty of awakening.
Yeah, send us some of the awakening this way, guys. Actually, what does happen when, I'm not sure what we mean by an awakening, actually, an epiphany or whatever you're talking about there, but certainly I know that when people first begin developing mediumship, you do get quite a lot of physical changes to the body. You'll notice them. You'll notice quite a lot of things like strong emotions, high sensitivity, high energy, then no energy, and all sorts of emotional and spiritual changes, because I think something happens to the spirit body and I think its interaction with the physical body changes quite a lot. So it's quite normal, and this has happened to people I've spoken to who've sat in my circles before, sat for development with me before, and when I first started sitting in my first circle to learn, you do go through an awful lot of changes, and perhaps weight loss could be one of those. It may be, but you know, these things have not been studied by science, so this is anecdotal evidence I'm saying to you here. But yes, certainly I think people do go through a lot of quite a lot of physical changes when you develop your mediumship.
Okay, let's have the next question then, please, Willow. Hi there, what is a twin flame? Does everyone have one? It seems to be a very sort of vogue thing at the moment, doesn't it, Craig? Twin flames. Are we talking about soulmates? Are we talking about connections with people from past lives? It sounds... the expression twin flame sounds very hot, especially in this weather, doesn't it? But I like to think of soul connections, and it's not just with your partner, or that it could be people that you feel as one. I mean, we recently met some lovely people, and it felt so right, as if we just stepped into the zone, if you like, and we felt all connected with them spiritually. And physically, it felt so right, didn't it? You know
I think there's a lot of, I mean, there's lots of words get bandied around, don't they, nowadays, where people talk about indigo children, or they talk about soulmates, and they talk about twin flames. This is another one of the sort of phrases that's gone out there. And I think what people mean by it is the twin souls. You know, are the twin souls? Does everybody have a soulmate, a person that is meant to be with them? I would probably say no to that. I think that's a lot of fantasy, but I do think that there are very, very strong connections between people. So people come together, like Jane and I have come together, because there's a very strong spiritual bond that we've probably had from previous lives and are through this life too. So there's people that will come into your life who are very important, and yes, I suppose would be like a similar flame to you, I suppose, you know. They might be, and there might be people also that come into your life that are meant to be with you, who are bad news, who are part of your life, part of your karma, part of your learning process. So embrace all of it. Don't keep hankering that there's somebody out there that's going to be Mr. Right, for example, and when's Mr. Right coming into my life? You know, when you're doing readings, you get this all the time. And I think it's not really about that, you know. You'll find the right spiritual connections if you get on the right spiritual path yourself.
Yeah. Have the next question, please, Willow.
Give it time, because they don't come up that quick.
Yeah, they will. Lily Love, I like that name. I'm searching your channel for 2023 predictions on US economy and stock markets and production. Have you any well, I don't really get into stock markets, otherwise I'd be doing corporative things. Actually, the stock market in a big company, if I'd done that, not just for everybody.
Well, I have been helping a few people with the private readings sometimes for the stock market.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good thing doing
that.
But
it's not something I'd publicly make a lot of noise about. But there are some predictions out there about the US stock market and things like that, and what my feelings are about it. I think it's another thing that probably needs to be looked at soon, actually, something that are doing the Coffee with Craigs, because we are kind of at quite an important turning point now politically, particularly in America. This is going to affect the stock market in some ways and another, inevitably. You know, the stock market doesn't like uncertainty, so it doesn't take just a psychic to tell you this. You know, I think this is a volatile time, so a cautious time when you're doing your investments, and cautious always. But you know, like I'm not a trained financier, so these type of things are obviously, you know, from a psychic opinion, as it were, with these things.
Right. Just got my coffee with Craig mug, and I love it. Well, he never makes me cups of coffee. He'll give me a coffee mug. You should have a cut crystal glass, nice cut crystal glass.
I haven't got one today. I've
Jane.
just got an ordinary plain old glass today. What's so much for coffee? But thanks for buying and supporting it. Actually, that's always good, because if you buy the merchandise, it is appreciated. I saw there'd been a bit of a flood of sales on some of those recently, and there's a Craig and Jane show one out there now. I think it should be up by now. Yeah. So we have to bring some of those in for this show, actually, Jane.
Well,
But they're quite nicely done,
I
actually,
think
those mirrors.
perhaps then I should have merchandise with nice cut crystal glasses on. When they fill it with water or wine,
No, I'm afraid
suddenly
it's
they
just
have a
mugs and
vision of
things.
me. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
They just do mugs and things and T-shirts and
I'll
that
work
sort of
on
thing.
that.
Because these are things that are done by Google. It's YouTube.
Right.
I can't
Nana,
read this one.
does our souls have soul families, soulmates, and do we have a unique soul family name? I believe we do have soul families that we all connect, because it's like, being psychic, our vibrations are quite high, and we connect with our family like you're all as one. So I would say that we do have soul families. Some people don't understand it. What would you say, Craig?
Well, I think it's quite an interesting question, actually,
No,
because
that's very good.
I've often thought of the idea that, like in spiritualism, they have naming services in which they will connect into the spirit and give a baby's
That's right, I've
spiritual
done those.
name, right? So it's not like a christening. It's like, this is your spiritual name. And like in the Nadis, it came up with what my spiritual name. It says my name is Paramaswaran. So that was my spiritual name that I've carried through the
It could be worse,
through
Craig.
the different incarnations.
They could have called you Parma Cheese.
Yeah, wouldn't it be awful? This is your spiritual name, jerk.
No.
But no. So they have a spiritual name, and
That's
there's
right.
no. But I haven't thought about this idea, so I don't know, to answer the last part of that question, if there's a family spiritual name. I suppose a group soul
Yes.
may
it would
adopt
be.
a name. I mean, it sounds an interesting concept, doesn't it? I think that's quite
Yeah,
an
'cause
interesting thought.
When
but
I've done naming,
I don't know how we could answer it.
well, when I've done naming services for babies, and they get their spirit name, what the spirit guides give to them. Also, they usually come with flowers as well, and that child is given a particular flower from the spirit world as well.
And I think there's something quite nice about having your earthly name, and if you can find out your spiritual name, because
It's nice.
in the Nadi, for me, it said that the spiritual name, by using that spiritual name, I don't use it day to day, but you notice it's on some of my books, and it's also sometimes at the bottom of the screen when it says Craig Hamilton Parker, when it puts my spiritual name underneath. It says it generates a very powerful energy spiritually in your life, and helps to awaken the things that are supposed to help you to flower. So it's quite an important thing, I think, to find out your spiritual name. And I think it's almost a bit like a personal mantra,
Yeah.
and triggers the memories.
What does Sharavana call me and you? What does he call me?
He calls me Shiva and you Shakti. He says, "Oh, hi Shiva, where's Shakti?" Which I think,
Cheeky.
he's being a bit facetious there. I think a bit silly with us, but I mean, I think that's rather nice when they do that, But that's quite nice. That comes back to the twin flames, Shiva and Shakti,
Yeah.
the two yin and yang, the two
Frank.
energies. It's nice of him. A compliment.
Question: is there a new spiritual leader coming to this planet any time? You're here, aren't you, Craig?
Yeah. Well, there's a number. I don't know if you want to answer first, Jane, or me, but I mean, there's a number of spiritual leaders that are coming to the
We've got some
planet.
already.
And Jane and I, we follow Sharavana Baba now quite a lot and talk about him, who is permanently in London now for quite some time. So you can always go and find about him on his website if you wanted to find out more. But we were also very strong followers of Satisai Baba, who was the incarnation of Shridi Baba, who will have a third incarnation as Prima Sai. So I believe that's true, and I believe that there will be another great avatar in this form of Prima Sai. There's the Hindu talk also talks about the great coming of the great avatar that will come. There's in Buddhism, there's Maitreya, which is another great teacher that will come. In Christianity, there's the second coming of Christ. So all the kind of religions of the world point to these incarnations of great beings that will come back into this earth. And could it not be that they all come, or that they're all one, with different same reflections of the same Godhead and divinity, But so I think great teachers will come to the world and will help the world. But there's always the greatest teacher of all is already here. It's inside yourself, because each of us has in us divine knowledge, complete and total divine knowledge. And if we tune to that, then we can get the true guidance we need. We only need to look within, and that's where the teacher is. And that's where all the great teachers point you. Would you agree with that, Jane?
Absolutely, yeah. Because wisdom should be within, and your own intuition should be in, and your energy. I mean, if you radiate goodness around the world, and we really need it at the moment, such wicked things happening, we can change the world, because at the moment it's quite disrupted, isn't it? It's like evil around everywhere.
Yeah, the world's been a tough place. But remember, the answers are not always in the world, are they? The answers are within yourself. And if you can find solace, and you can find peace, and you can find the bliss within, then whatever happens in the outside world is secondary. You know, there will always be troubles in the world. Even in the golden age, I'm sure there'll be people that would still suffer. But the escape from suffering has to be the inner journey, not the outer one.
Yes, now Sean says, does everyone have psychic abilities? Is it genetically inherited? Not necessary. I think everybody can use their sixth sense. It's like, as a child, we're taught what's right and wrong, and everybody on a certain level is quite sensitive, but sometimes it might skip a generation's psychic abilities and pass down perhaps to a grandchild. Perhaps a grandchild might be able to see auras or that for a fact, but usually psychic abilities, I honestly believe, is given to you. It's a higher energy, a higher force that's given to you, and you're tested many times. I mean, you can't possibly be psychic 24/7 because your brain wouldn't take it. Would you agree, Craig?
Well, I think it's yes, but I would also say that psychic abilities are partly inherited and partly brought by our soul. Because if you think about it, artistic abilities are often perhaps run in families. You know, you might find your mum's been a good artist and your grandmother was a great artist, and you can kind of track it back. You know, I mean, we were watching Andrew Lloyd Webber last night on Who Do You Think You Are, and I thought that was quite interesting because they trace him back. And it was all kind of like the music. There were musicians, a whole load of musicians. And that's where I come from.
The cello,
and the cello. But also, there's also, I think, this soul itself that comes into that body that can then utilise those talents that are genetically given to us. So there's a bit of genetics, but I think we bring with our soul, I suppose we could call it, our spirit, our atma that comes into this body. That's who we are. That's where we've learned. We have learnt the psychic skills in struggles in past lives, probably through lots of sadhana, lots of struggle and work, and sometimes tapas, and we struggle towards it. And so I think they've been earned in previous lives, but we have a body that is capable of being able to express that part of the soul. And and I think the soul chooses a genetic line that can be helpful for the flowering of that soul in this life.
Right. So one more question. Hello. Then we can agility bits. A final report on an investigation into UFOs is expected from NASA at the end of July. They insist they're not hiding anything. What do you think? Well, I don't think we can be so ignorant and think there isn't another life force. I believe there are aliens, and I believe there are other life forms. We can't possibly be the only living things. Very interesting, because Swami Sharavana says that we originally all come from Mars, and you think, well, Mars, all dust, quite heated. How is that possible?
I think I'm kind of the opinion of ancient aliens myself. I think aliens may have come to the Earth hundreds of thousands.
Didn't the cavemen, sorry to interrupt, but didn't the cavemen have actual paintings of aliens where they had cone-shaped heads?
Yeah, there's all sorts of things that people can interpret as that. But I actually think something must have happened hundreds of thousands of years ago, maybe. Something that, a bit like the 2001 fantasy of the movie, Arthur C. Clarke's book, because did something come along to change the direction of, and did it use the genetics of the apes to sort of create a new being, which was the human race? Although there's many different branches of humanity that you could find that died out. We're not the only ones. We're not the only ones who've been on this planet. There were many other different types of humans. But there is kind of a suggestion that something special happened to the human race.
Me-
And I wonder whether something did interfere physically.
Makes me wonder in the future when we've got this artificial intelligence and these robots, it'd be very interesting. That's when the aliens land.
Yeah, possibly.
Well, I think it will, because, you know, we won't know reality, what's true, what's a real human being or what's a robot, and perhaps that's when the great coming comes.
Yeah, artificial intelligence is going to be one of the most critical and important things. It's going to question the nature of human existence, consciousness, and what it is to be human.
Shall we have a little runabout now?
Yeah, I think it's it's probably a good time. As you know, guys, we go out and about, and we do
Sunday.
every now and again. We put a spirit of video up. So we're going to have a little our little interlude now. Now, give me a minute because I've got to sort of set this up. You can talk to them for a minute if you want.
Oh, thank you very much.
Talk about something great.
So pleased.
It'll be up in a second. So I can sort this out. Here we go.
I think I like this one, Lillian. Do you think angels and prophets and Christ were simply alien races?
You're not going to have time to answer it because here it comes.
All right, we'll get that another time.
I think. Today we're looking for the Gypsy church, or the Gypsy Cathedral, I think some people call it. We've got to go through a few interesting sort of villages to get to it. We've got to find it if it's still there. But we just spotted this interesting place, haven't we?
Yeah, perhaps the gypsies, perhaps it's their spirit guides.
Yeah, well, I'll just show you what I've just spotted. Here's the first one. And then spotted something pretty peculiar. One. I must have put the wrong one on the tape though. It
I'm
must
listening,
be on
we'll see.
Oh, blow. With the wrong ones on the we can't do it.
Why is that? You've got
because I've got the wrong video file on there. They must have put the wrong one up. Never mind, we'll show you that one next week.
You sure you can't get it?
No, I can't get it because there's not a file there. So never mind, we'll put that one up next week, and you can see the ghosty one next week. I don't want to put the same one up as we had last week.
No.
So that was
it was silly. really interesting.
Yeah, well spotted though that it was the wrong one.
Yeah,
well, sorry about that, but we'll show you that one next week. Nah, don't know how that happened. Mind you, it was all a bit of a rush getting out tonight.
Right, there we go. Do you think angels and prophets and Christ were simply alien races that resembled humans?
Okay, lot in there.
Well, angels, I don't see angels as seraphims with great big wings, 7 foot. I see them angels of light that's made up of 1,000 tiny little stars, as though they're like angels of light. I've never met an alien, so I can't give an opinion on that. And I think really, because, you know, when I'm talking about these robots and artificial intelligence, you know, they're very clever. They can be anything. They can take your persona on and things like that. So we won't be able to think for ourselves. That's the only thing that worries me.
So I think they were the gods. I think many of the things, when you look at the stories of the gods, they have the ability to fly in the air. You look at all the stories from ancient Egypt, from ancient India, from South America, the stories that seem to linger all through all the races of the world, and all the cultures seem to point also to the Pleiades as being, the Seven Sisters stars group is mentioned in Aborigines, it's mentioned by the ancient Indians, it's mentioned by Egyptians, it's mentioned in South America again, all the old classic cultures and the very ancient cultures that go perhaps particularly like the Aborigines go right the way back to Stone Age times, unchanged. Those stories are there about the gods came from the stars. So maybe they have. Whether super powerful human beings such as Christ, you say, or perhaps the great teachers of India, or Osiris or whatever, you know, whether they were aliens, I think that's probably more debatable, because actually I think humans have superhuman powers. I mean, we touch upon it a little bit, we just touch the edge of it, don't we, with clairvoyance and predictions and things like that. But I think the human capability is extraordinary. But there may have been also people here, like Shiva often comes across to me as being like an energy that seems almost to be of an alien species, almost something that's superhuman. Who knows? We can't answer it really, can we? How can I answer it, or Jane answer it, or any of us really answer it? But it's certainly, we can certainly wonder about it, can't we? And it is a fascinating thought. Maybe we'll know one day. Maybe there'll be some evidence. And we'll all say the aliens have come to Earth, and we'll go, oh, so that's what it was all about. Now we know. You know?
Right. Nana says, on holiday going over something Shanty, California, the mist hit us early on going over the mountain. We cannot remember anything else of it. Any ideas as to why there was no memory?
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, Nana.
That's kind of an interesting personal experience that I don't think we could actually answer, but we can speculate, I suppose, couldn't we? I mean, memory losses are interesting things, because people, particularly when groups of people get a memory loss, and that's when it starts to get interesting, because if one person has a memory loss, we can say, oh, it's a memory loss, it's a problem of some sort, some form of amnesia or absent-mindedness. But when a whole group of people, which I think is what you're suggesting there, a whole group of people, suddenly there's a blank, you know, it's got to be questionable, you know, what happened, did something happen to cause that? And we can only speculate, can't we? We can only speculate, all of us can speculate. Perhaps if you've got some ideas, go put something in the comments, or put something later, you know.
Sounds like a time zone thing, doesn't it? And do you know what comes to mind? Do you remember that film, is it Shangri-La? Like the Lost City? It sounds like that. It sounds like you've taken it in and suddenly it's been blanked out, and where are we?
There's been lots of interesting things like that, Bermuda, where there's been time slips, time slips, where people have been sort of, as groups, taken back to previous times. They've like been doing something, and suddenly they're in the past, and they're seeing all medieval stuff or something. Or people have, you know, stepped out of time. Who knows? There's all sorts of quirks in reality, isn't there? You know, deja vu might have something to do with that too. That we see
thank you, Catherine, for donating 99.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I just saw that come up there. Yeah, so someone giving a donation. Thank you, guys. So
it's very
I can't read it, Jane.
Okay, I'll read it. Beatrice Dye. Any of your grandchildren show signs that they could be mediums like you? Well, I think children, it's not until they go through puberty they're allowed to use that. I know Willow, when she was very young, she used to see colours around people.
Well, Willow's
she's doing that there.
The controls for us tonight.
Yeah.
So one of our grandchildren's half an egg.
Say hi, Willow.
Yeah. Are you a medium, Willow?
I don't know.
She doesn't know.
Well, she used to have dragonflies that used to fly around her, and I think really they have to use their own free will. I can't say that there's any grandchildren that are going to be mediums. I can't really, honestly, hand on heart, say that.
I think you naturally would get an interest if your grandparents have been so deeply into it. I know my daughter's getting very interested now in spirituality, and since she met Sharavana, for example, because that was, wow, how did he know all that?
Amazing.
And then, you know, you get drawn in if you're meant to and you want to, and it's free will, isn't it? And it's not everybody, and not everybody wants to do this at any particular point in their life.
Work.
But I think there's some, you know, it's not a path. I think if one knew what it was truly like, I don't think it's a path you choose willingly, particularly being a medium, because it does have many challenges on many levels, health-wise, spiritually-wise, emotionally, and difficulties with, you know, trying to live outside of the norms, as it were, of society. So it's not an easy path. And it's something I think a person chooses, and I think perhaps chooses before they come here into this life in some respects.
But it's a very rewarding life, because if you're helping many people and you're communicating with loved ones from the other side, it can change somebody's life for the better, because especially if parents have lost children, I mean, how would one get over that? Because it's not easy. But for that child to connect to their Earth Mother and their Earth Father and give them proof, that is so rewarding to do that and be a part of that. But being a medium, I think, is really a great honour, and also with Craig and my work, and I feel that we're very blessed to be trusted with that and to connect with some wonderful people on the earth.
And if any of you are daft enough to want to become a medium, have a look on the website at the moment, because I have a look at the courses link. You'll see a link on there, an image for courses. That I am doing some both private mentoring and some classes online that people can come in as a group now. These are new. The first one's coming up the first one of these is coming up in July. So you need to book straight away if you're interested in that. And I can take you on the rocky path to mediumship, or some of the basic things about spirituality. And the first one's going to be about the difference between being psychic and mediumistic, with a little bit of demonstrative work on that. And of course, also, if you have a look in the description below, you can get the link to the website, where you can also find out about Jane and my readings, and also links to Jane's channel too. It's all there in the description. So keep your questions coming, guys. It's good to keep this running, because we're getting quite a lot of questions.
Yeah.
It helps keep the show running. We're missing 10 minutes of the show today because of I brought the wrong
Craig,
file.
Yeah. That's men for you. Now, Kurtwood said, will A1, artificial intelligence, be the end of the earth? No, it won't. It won't. But you see, we've got I'd say the year 2046, that's when we're going to see the Great Coming. That's what I believe. Because we're going to have all these robots, won't know what's real, and it's not as if we're going to think for ourselves, and that's when the Great Coming, I think, that's going to happen.
Well, I think with artificial intelligence, like anything, isn't it? It's got both good and bad to it. I've started playing around with it, for example, to write the descriptions to YouTube videos, and it makes a good job of it. And it says, I said, tell me, write a description for this video called the Craig and Jane Show, in which we ask questions, right? So if you look at the description to this video, the first paragraph was actually just written by artificial intelligence for me. But great, perfect. Drop it in. It's going to put writers like myself in a very difficult position sometimes, because any old Tom, Dick and Harry can write.
And computer coders.
And computer programmers are going to find it extremely difficult. So it'll check your code and it'll do all the code and write the code. I like the website we've got, it's all written in Python. We can ask it now to check it using AI, and the guys that now behind the site, I'm asking to use AI to check things, and can we adapt it into the system already? So AI is going to be really important. It's going to put an awful lot of people out of work, even in the creative industry. It'll sing you a song in the style of Elvis. It'll write you a poem in the style of Wordsworth, and I even got it. I asked it the other day to rewrite Churchill's speeches in the style of Stanley Unwin. I don't know if anybody remembers Stanley Unwin, but Stanley Unwin doing Churchill was quite amusing. So, but it is a little bit frightening, because it did sound like Stanley Unwin.
Yeah, I'd like to think for myself though, because otherwise you're not going to have any free will, are you? You're not going to think for yourself, you're not be able to do things. I mean, these gadgets are okay on one level, but it's nice that we can interact and do things ourselves.
You could have said the same thing about the calculator then, because I remember at school when we used to do logarithmic tables and things, and you go, why am I doing these logarithms? And then calculators come out and they're useless. Who uses logarithms now? All those sort of things we had to do pre-calculators were tiresome tasks that can be done instantly. So AI has a lot to offer, but the dangers of it are when it starts to be able to, for example, impersonate people, or when it starts to be able to give the old fake news. Then we're in dangerous ground, because it's so hard to distinguish what has been written by a real person and what has been written by AI, prompted by perhaps a real person with an agenda, or particularly when we start seeing AI producing videos of speeches by whatever politician saying this or that was never said, but it can mimic, and there's the danger. And that's why we're going to have rules of some sort. But who makes the rules? This is where the danger is always. Who's going to make the rules for this? The businesses, The politicians, you and me, I doubt you and me would do it. It'll be the guys at the top. So it can be used as a very dangerous form of subjugation of people.
Well, I asked artificial intelligence, actually, I said, what's your purpose? Are you good? It said we can be good or we can be bad. It depends what human controls it. That's what it said to me.
Yeah, and I think that's been put in advance, actually, some of those responses. Because I'll also notice that with artificial intelligence, it's very wokey and left-wing.
And I did say to it, tell me now, are you working on sex robots? He said, I don't understand the question.
Yeah, good one. But I asked it about psychic things, and it always reminds us that it's pseudoscience.
Yeah, of course it will.
So I think, okay, so
who's controlling
someone
that?
has said that it's all pseudoscience. So that means we never study these things. We never study telepathy as being a reality. Only the scientifically proven things can be right. It's a bit like Wikipedia, completely skewered, really, in many respects. It's a particular rationalist type of mindset. No room for the spirit. So, you know, and also AI, of course, could be used even to become a religious type thing. When you start asking it questions, solve my problems for me, AI, what do I do? When will my boyfriend come back? Blah, 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 blah. What would it give? You know, who knows? So very dangerous and also very possibly very helpful.
Right, I read this for you, Craig. Agility bits. Is there an upper age limit to becoming a medium? I think really, I'd say from the age of 18, really, I would suggest. But then you would have to sit in a circle for at least 7 years. And it's not, you know, you see so many mediums on this Facebook and half of them haven't done a service in a spiritualist church. It seems like very theatre that they all want to be famous and on the stage and everything. But it should be service, it should be evidential proof, it should be helping those people that really are in need.
I know a lot of people have, I mean, there are mediums within spiritualism that started late in their life, in their 60s, for example.
Yes, but that was a long time
but
ago.
But you do need a long training period as a medium.
We need young people, and they need to be sincere. And as I say, lead 7 years in a circle. They need how to open up the chakras, how to close down the chakras. They need to know what's real, what's not real, clairsentience, and what they're feeling in the solar plexus and everything. And you know, years and years ago, you didn't hear of mediums. It was all done secret. It was all sort of done in somebody's front room, and on a Friday evening, and everything. But now it's sort of it's all come out the closet. I mean, the late Doris Stokes was absolutely fantastic, and she brought it all out in the public. But then she got jealousies from certain people, saying, "Oh, she's not a medium. She's psychic, my dear. It's different." That lady worked very, very hard, and she changed things because she was like everybody's granny, and she was so normal, so down to earth. She wasn't showbiz at all, was she, Craig?
Yeah, and Jane and I both started quite young as mediums. I started in my early 20s, and right at the beginning, I went straight into spiritualism, doing demonstrations in London mainly, because you know I was a single parent, so I didn't want people to know about what I was doing at that time, because it was sneered upon, spiritualism of those days. And I used to go up, and I was pretty good. And I hadn't seen any other medium.
I love your ego, Craig.
Well, it wasn't ego, because it was actually I'd only ever seen two mediums working, and that was a man called Gordon Higginson and Doris Stokes. So I assumed you had to be as good as them. So I was given all this evidence and things, and I got an awful lot of resistance from the older people. How dare these young people come in and do all this, you know?
Oh,
it was really anti me, because
terrible.
I was basically better than them that have been doing it for years and years and years.
Dreadful.
So it can come at any age, but it's obviously much better if it can come when a person's young, because then you've got a lifetime to learn it, and you never learn it all, you know. If you're a good medium, you're always learning, and you're thinking, my God, you know. And even when you've been doing it all your life, you're still as nervous as hell when you do a mediumistic link, because you never know where it's coming from. It's like you've got to give yourself to it and trust it. It's not something like a skill you can learn like musician or practice.
Yeah. Well, I remember yesterday, I won't say the person's name, and they said, "Oh, I wonder, Jane, if you could get a person. I'm dying to know." I said, "Well, I can't promise anything. That person's only been over in April. Let me just ask and let me just see." Suddenly I saw a vision of turnips and a turnip field. I thought, what a bizarre thing to show me. That's right, he lived next to a turnip field.
Yeah, I remember you telling me.
And that's where he had a
yesterday
mobile
what it
home
was.
by the turnip field and turnips. And then he showed me, I said, there's a man standing here and he's got an enormous... That's him, that's him. So if the need is great, then the spirit world will come through. Not because people clicking their fingers, I need so-and-so, I need to know about this and that. It doesn't happen like that.
In fact, when people make demands on a medium, it tends not to happen. When people say, tell me this, tell me that, why didn't you see this, why didn't you see that, it don't work. Because
demanding.
it has to come as a flow. Like, you know, the most extraordinary information can come through if you're allowed to do your work in the right conditions. But the problem is, what happens is most people have never really, say, been to a spiritualist church, so they don't know the ropes at all. They're coming into it sometimes well-meaning, but ignorant of how it works and how the medium works. And really what you've got to do is you've got to accept what's given. And when you just go with it and just see what the spirit has to say, rather than try to make the medium tell you what you want to hear, that will stop it, that will block it. People will say, oh, yeah, again, I want him to tell me that I'm going to marry so-and-so. And if they got that agenda all the time, they're pushing that thought upon you. And actually, the medium might say those things because they're being forced, as it were. You've got to allow it to flow. You've got to get the fluence going. And then the mediumship can really go to a high level.
There's someone's asking on there, because I can see
don't look at the side ones. No, wait.
No, can you put...
no, don't look at those.
Craig, calm down.
Yeah.
Let's just
I'll
see.
put a piece of
Calm
paper on.
down.
Did you start that?
No, stop it. Jane, do you think you were with Craig in a past life? At this moment, absolutely not.
Yeah. I tried to stop Jane trying to sort of control.
Do you think you were with Craig in a past life? I
think
think we were,
Yeah.
and that in the past life, in all seriousness, because I feel when you meet a person that you recognise, it feels as if you've never left each other, and you know exactly what words are going to roll out at the end of the tongue, and it feels as if, you know, all is one, and it feels like you've been through many previous incarnations, and you know, because I've always had a fascinating time with India, and Craig has, and I had a grandmother that always used to cook with curry powder, and she would never have peacock feathers in the house because she thought they were unlucky because of the third eye. But I absolutely love peacocks and peacock feathers and glittery things. And I remember when I was in India, a lovely lady when I stayed in an ashram, inside Baba's ashram, said, Auntie, you must have been Indian in past life, very glittery lady. And I think it's because we like the brightness and the light and the sparkle and the beauty. And I think with Libras that comes naturally, Craig.
Yeah, and I think, going back to that twin flames question at the beginning, you know, if you want to find the person that's meant to be with you, as it were, don't go, I know with me, people get distracted by the fact that I'm so good looking, but look for the spiritual side of the person, you know. Don't think, bring me someone sexy, bring me someone rich, bring me whatever. Bring me someone spiritually minded in the same way as me. Yeah. Then all the rest will happen. All the rest will fall into place, you know. I think if you seek the spiritual things in life, on all levels, if you in your career, seek the spiritual side first, and you'll probably find you're doing a happy job. Seek the spiritual side in relationships, and you'll probably find you meet somebody that is going to make you happy. Seek the spiritual things in your children. All things. Always seek the spiritual, and all the rest will come of its own accord. Simple.
Right. Next question.
I can't read these, they're too tiny for me.
Lita, have either of you had a client you simply could not read all that well, or hardly anything, or anyone come through? No, not really, because I'm a great believer, I don't know if Craig agrees with this, that the spirit world make the appointments who you're meant to see, because as I said before in previous talks, that when I get emails that come through, I lay them all out and I see a blue orb light, communication light, and then I turn that over, because I take the view I don't have to see anybody, but if spirit has sent a particular person I'm meant to see, then I will see that person. And I can say that Craig and I, we can have difficult people sometimes that are very demanding, wanting this, wanting that. It doesn't work like that. But I can't honestly say that I've had anyone gone away disappointed or nobody has come through, because I personally couldn't do no more than 2 people a day, because you take a lot of energy out of us. But it's a lot easier working in the theatres, because then you've got the energy that rises up, but you're trying to give 100% to one person, to your sitter, and concentrate on that person. But I can honestly say that, I've never had anybody I could say disappointed. Just look at my reviews on Yale, Jane Hampton Park, and it'll speak for itself, and I'm sure Craig's work does.
Well, I definitely had people that are almost impossible to read. I mean, I've done work, for example, when I was working with Richard Dawkins on TV. I'd love to give him a message, but I knew I would never be able in a million years give him a message, because he was just not open to it. And I think when it comes to making a connection with somebody in the spirit, the conditions have got to be right. So you've got to be open, you've got to be fresh, you've got to be connected to the spirit world. So is the person that's with you, really. They've got to be open in a way. I don't say gullible open, but kind of open to the fact that there's an interesting experiment going on here, and that something might happen or may not. And you can't make promises to say, I'm definitely going to get this through or that through. You can't. Every time we do a sitting, it's kind of an experiment, and I think it's better to go into it with that idea. But like Jane was starting to talk about there, you do get what we call blockers, right? So you might be, particularly when you're doing a public demonstration, which I think is the most interesting form of all the work. And when you go into it, and you might be get great message for that person, great message for that person, loads of evidence there, and then you get one, prove it to me,
blocker.
And they're going to be bloody difficult right from the start. And the way I was always taught to deal with them is give them a little bit, and then they say, yes, got it, yes, I understand, and then move on to someone else. Because frankly, if they're going to be putting up, particularly in a public meeting, they're going to be causing obstructions like that for you. It's probably better to move on and let the people that are open to having the message get it, rather than those that are going to try to be difficult. Or there's others, exactly just as bad, who grab the messages and want every message is for them, and that's also just as difficult, because you're not with that person, they're trying to grab a message for someone else in the audience. And so there's lots you learn, particularly when you get up on the public platform, about the nuances of the psychology of the people that are out there receiving the messages. And that's why the conditions have got to be right. Got to be right for you, right for them, and then it can flow.
Absolutely. Next one, Willow. Right.
We got Willow in the background today. Our granddaughter doing all this for you guys.
Hi, how can one distinguish between messages and ordinary thoughts, Craig?
There's always a tough one, actually, for people, particularly. This is one that I teach a lot about in my teaching classes and the courses I do and things. Particularly when I used to sit in circles, real life circles, and teach people in circles. I've done a lot of teaching work in my time. And this is the number one question, really, because how do I know it's coming from me or not? And the fact is you don't. You don't until you've opened your mouth and said something, frankly. And I teach people in real life circles, I particularly teach people, I can't do that on Zoom so easy, which is a great shame, but I teach people using psychometry first of all. So I say, here, hold that watch. You don't know whose it is. Tell me all about the person that owned it. And they go, oh, I don't know what to say. I say, right, what I want you to do is just say whatever comes to your mind, no matter how stupid it might be, just say whatever comes into your mind. And that is when you start to learn not to keep analysing what's coming in, but you have to kind of just say whatever comes into thought, you say it. And this has to be practiced in a circle. This is where the years of work come. And then eventually you can just get into a flow, you just pick it up and say, oh, this lady was a lady that used to cook a lot, or used to live on a farm and had one leg broken, or something like that. And all sorts of things come. And then they say to, how much did you get right? First it might be 10%, 20%, and then next you know, a few weeks time, 80%, 100% of that is right. So it's learning to trust the flow, and there's no actual saying that's my thought and that's spirit's thought, because you can't distinguish very easily. The only way to do it is just to go with it, and it's a learning to almost speak without censoring your thoughts, which is we're taught to do the opposite in life. And yet at the same time, we don't want to say something horrible to someone, like you're going to die. That sort of thought needs censoring. But at the same time, the flow has to come through in a kind of a way that is unobstructed by the reason. The reason gets in the way. Key thing, for spiritual development, really, and how to do that. And that is only done really through practice until you eventually start to realise that's coming from spirit, it's not coming from me. And you never really know. It's just like they're your thoughts, but where did they come from? You don't know where your own thoughts come from, even the thought you're having at the moment, do you? Where did that last thought you got in your mind come from? It's a connection of thoughts and thoughts and thoughts that go back and back and back into the unconscious mind. But they come from somewhere, and then sometimes they're seeded in from outside, from the spirit itself.
Right, next question please, Willow. Nana, can a soulmate be bad for you to help you grow, or do they have to be all sweet and compatible? I think it depends on your karma, really. Nana, sometimes, you know, you might marry very young, you don't know any better, you fall in love and you might be just in your 20s, and that person doesn't turn out to be as you think they were going to be, and they might be a control freak, doesn't give you any freedom, or to see you as a personal 1950s slave to them, and you know, and then suddenly you have to leave that person or step aside, and then you meet a really good person that you can share your life with, and do great things together, and you know, eventually it all works out. I believe in that. I think that we've got to experience a little bit of suffering in life to find the nectar, the honey and the sweetness with a special person, and we've got it right in the end. That's what I truly, truly believe.
Yeah, and I think life is not all about just sweetness and light, is it? Life is about suffering sometimes too. Because if you think about the times in your life when you perhaps progressed the most and became a stronger person, it isn't the times when things were easy. It was the times when adversity struck you. I mean, when adversity comes into your life, it might not be comfortable or nice. It might not be something you want at the time, but often it can be the making of you, can't it? And I think this is important, that we learn to understand that life is good and bad. You know, both are equally important, and both are helping you progress. Both are ultimately good because they're helping you to become who you really are. And I think the people that come into your lives, particularly those people that come into your lives on a very close level, and particularly those that come into your lives on a close level and then let you down in some way. It might be someone, a friend, it might be family, it might be a relationship close, it might be a marriage partner, it might be a spouse or a sibling. When those people let you down, they raise major questions in you. They make you question your life. They take you out of your comfort zone again, don't they? And they really, in many respects, they are your best friends, because they are teaching you to become who you are, to understand. And you don't want to become, ultimately, if you've won the battle, you haven't become moody about the past and sort of hatred for the past and hate for all people. You realise that all people are a mixture of good and bad.
That's right.
And we treat them with tolerance.
Right, next question please, Willow.
Getting closer in soon.
During the reading, have you had a vision showing how your client will die? Well, we don't really predict death. I mean, doctors can tell people when their organs are broken down, but that's not really what we do. If I saw somebody that had, say in the uterus, cancer cells, I wouldn't say you're going to die. I would advise them to go to the doctor so they get help, because we're not a professional doctor. That's on a different vibration, so they would have to, we don't look at people and see like their life force and energy when they're going to die, because it's not in our hands, it's in God's hands, of course. Also, anybody working as a psychic or a medium, particularly in the UK, needs to understand that it is not legal. You're not allowed to make predictions about health. You're not allowed to make predictions about death. You're not allowed to make predictions to say I can cure cancer if you're a healer and so forth. There are very much rules out there about what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. So I don't like, in fact on my website I say, you know, I don't answer questions about health. I don't answer questions about when someone will die. I don't answer questions about pregnancy either, because these are things that really are out of the scope of a psychic, really. If people do press on those things, I will always make a big thing about saying, look, I'm not a doctor, I'm not trained in these things, therefore, you know, this can only be an opinion. And then I give it as an opinion about what I feel. But of course, you know, you don't want to seed fear,
you don't want to seed unfair, unnecessary hope. It's such a difficult line, and some people press on these things, and it's not really fair to do that, because we as mediums try very hard to always, you have to work within what the law is first and foremost, and you have to and people have to understand we can't see everything. You know, it's like when I was talking earlier about that you get into the fluence, the flow. If someone's pushing their thoughts upon you, I want you to tell me I'm going to marry this bloke, or I want you to tell me that I'm going to inherit all the money, I'm going to inherit all the money. You know, they push it on the medium. The medium will, if they're a weak medium, might be pushed along that path that the person's coming. We've got to be in a state where it's like an experiment, and if something comes, the spirit might say something like, you know, without being pushed, they might say, I see an illness around the person, but don't worry, they're going to get better. The fit and spirit are working with you. But they don't predict about it, you know? So it's a difficult field, that. And I think with all the things we do, we have to always try to take a very strong sense of responsibility and kindness. And this is why people that are mediums and psychic need to really be exemplary people, really, or struggle towards that, rather than those that you see. Cards, I'll draw you a card. I've got a card here. That's what, you know, when you see people advertising like that on Facebook and things, my heart weeps. I think, what's going on? What's happening? Where's all the genuine, spiritual minded, mediumistic and psychic people out there? They're still there, but they're just so few. And this, the world, that we've had a stampede of people that seem to sort of suddenly become mediums and psychics in this world. And I know you shouldn't knock other people with this, but it is worrying sometimes, I find, the way the industry, the way it's become an industry, really.
One more last question, please, Willow.
Yeah, this will have to be the last one now.
Let's go through Willie again. Can you explain why the Nadi works for people? I don't understand how it's possible. You're good at answering that, Craig.
Yeah, right. If you're going to consult the Nadi, be prepared to have your mind absolutely blown. Because what happens with the Nadi, particularly if you get a genuine Nadi, and as I often warn, you've got to be very cautious with the Nadi, because there's Nadi readers and Nadi readers, just as the psychics and the psychics, you know. But the Nadi, they were written thousands of years ago, rewritten every 500 years. They reckon that, from what I've heard, the leaves were dated to being about 500 years old. So they wrote these leaves with your name on it, your parents' name on it, the time of your birth, and the date, sometimes the time you would actually approach the Nadi, and all sorts of information about your life by seers that were writing this thousands of years ago. And then those leaves were being rewritten. So it's miraculous. It's an absolute miracle of India, these things. These are an absolute miracle. And there's no way we could possibly understand how it happens. It's not like a normal reading. So when people come to my website and go on the link to the Nadi reader that I recommend, which you can find on there if you're interested in doing this, they think, sometimes they go to it thinking it's going to be just like an ordinary reading, you know, and it's not. It delves into stuff that is way beyond anything you can comprehend. And if the reading is really good, and it may vary from person to person depending upon your karma, but if you get a really good reading, you come away from it thinking there's no possible way that could be known. And when I did my first Nadis, you know, people think now, oh, they can just look it up on the internet. But when I did my first Nadis, the internet was just in its inception. There was no information out there about us. It was the early days of the internet. And I covered my tracks to the point that there was absolutely no way they could know who I was. I didn't give my name, anything, nothing they could give away, you know. And the first readings I had, again, showed to me that this was coming from the leaf, not from somebody trying to trick you. And although there's lots of questions that's asked, because it's all written in ancient Tamil, so they have to read the first line of each word. So it might, because it's a long, complicated thing, because it's phonetic, as it were, they read the Tamil words to try to get your name. It can sound like 20 questions sometimes, but that takes a whole load to explain. But it's just mind-boggling. It's just beyond what anything we can conceive. There were people called the Rishis who lived centuries ago, who saw the coming dark age and wanted to help those people that wanted to find their way through by writing these leaves, and they are miraculous. They're in the realms of Lord of the Rings. It's just unbelievable. So you'll never get your head around it, Lily. You'll never get your head around it. You'll never suss it out, because it goes beyond what we understand as clairvoyance. It's let's say a super clairvoyance.
I think you ought to explain. They have to. It's not just about telling your life. You've got to do penances, rituals as well, and help the poor.
Well, yeah. But the things it does, you see, it will try to show you. It's there to try to show you the bad stuff. Actually, it's trying to show you the things that are coming up that you've got to get round. What the result of your karma is. Your karma is going to have good stuff, and your karma is going to have bad stuff. So it's going to show you the good stuff and the bad. What we see as bad, it's all good and bad, neither good or bad karma. It's just what it is. But it will also give you what's called remedies to help you to reduce the negativity of the bad. The bad would still come in, but it would be reduced to the point that it would become almost painless. You might, for example, not be taken by an illness that it sees, for example. So it's quite a difficult thing to take on. Like I say, it's not like a normal reading, but it's possibilities for helping you to clear your karmic path, of helping you to on the path towards enlightenment, because that's what it's about, are extraordinary. And it's mind-boggling, and it's something that, I've been proud to say that I've been one of the first to introduce this to the West. There's only 2 or 3 people that have done this. There's one guy in Germany that's introduced it, another guy in Denmark that's done it, and my friend in America that's doing it, and myself here in the UK. There's very few who have really studied this properly, and it is an extraordinary thing. Yeah, so for me, it's been a major part of my life.
Right, I think it's time to say good.
So we're going to be saying goodbye now. So we're going to let Willow find the thing on the thing, and we're going to be saying goodbye. So we're going to say thanks for joining us, thanks for being part of it, and don't forget, also become a patron, because if you're a patron, it helps this channel. Go and have a look at the description below. You can see all about our website and things, but also you can donate a little bit every month. That helps us to keep the studio running, helps us to keep all our equipment in order, and helps us towards our ultimate aim is to get a spiritual centre. So, it help us with the patron things. It's a non-profit organisation, like a charity. We don't take any money from it, but your help makes it work. So we're going to say goodbye. So thank you, everybody.
Yes,
See
goodbye,
you soon.
and enjoy
Bye
the
for now.
sunshine wherever you are. God bless.